This podcast is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
I don't really have an opener tonight, huh? It feels like one of those take questions night. I'm proud of everybody. I thought everybody played good. They are a really hard team to prepare for, especially on one day's prep. The way the calendar fell with who we've played, what we have coming up, that off day had to come yesterday. The day before. Yeah. So we had 1 day prep plus a little short walk through today, and it's hard to prepare for all the stuff that they do. So we just kind of kept it real simple in that we were okay giving up a few layups, but we were going to do whatever we could do to keep 44 from getting going. She is the key to them being hard to guard the entire game. And I thought our bigs did an unbelievable job making her life tough to only not make two, but just get 7 threes. So I thought our attention to detail, our focus, that is without a doubt our most complete game so far.
Sam's seeing the floor really well. She had 7 assists tonight. Could you talk about her development as a point guard in this league?
She's been that good for a long time. The game's really starting to slow down for her. She's added the rebounding now. She did 7 defensive rebounds tonight, which we turn into transition every single time. I thought she came in last year as ready as a freshman as I've ever coached. And then she came back this summer even more confident, willing to do more things. And I thought tonight was the first time all year that she really kind of let the game come to her. And I hope that she goes back and watches this on film and sees what she can do when that happens. The combination of her and Mac out there is just so hard to guard for everybody. And we've been playing them at the top, and it puts a lot of pressure on your defense initially. So, I wish I had her on my fantasy team tonight. 22-7-7. That's big. Steal, 25 minutes. That's big time fantasy points.
Yeah, I know Erin's primarily a post player, but we've seen her hit some threes, make some passes, and even some Euro steps. Could you talk about her skill and her versatility on the floor?
I've always fondly likened her game to the rec center guy that nobody can guard. And that's the biggest compliment, because that is kind of how she has made a name for herself. She worked really hard this summer. She was third on our team during the preseason in shooting threes percentage wise. She's just really become a complete all around. She's a really attentive defensive player. She spent the summer working for us in our office with a work study deal. And she's had just kind of a different approach ever since then. It helps that she's been around, knows everything we're doing. And when you get her in a matchup of somebody of similar size, it's a real challenge for those people.
Much as we've emphasized on offense, but for 4 quarters, you've really been able to disrupt this team. I don't know much about how their substitution, but they were having to do some mass substitution. Yeah. Was that in your game plan, or is that in their normal game plan?
Top of the scout for us, make sure we punish with pace so that they do have to get to some lineups. They don't like to. They would prefer to play 8. We only had 8 people on the scout. There were several people that got in really early that I was searching deep in talking to people that watch more film than I did on it. But no, pace is always going to have some compounding effect for us. And I think that showed late in the second quarter. We made a little stretch run there to hold them to 12, force them into some tough shots that we were able to run on. So I think, I said earlier in the year, we may not be one of those 100-point teams, but we're going to be a team that's defensively improved, rebounding obviously improved. So you may not have to. There were games we had to get to 100 to win, because we couldn't stop people. But now their attention to detail is practice, and I'm gonna keep giving these guys credit every chance I get. Our men's practice players are unbelievable. We were able to just show them. We were able to teach them their offense, which is really intricate, in about a day, in 1 day in a walkthrough, and they gave us an unbelievable look. So it's easy when you've simulated it in practice, and I'm just thankful that we've got those guys that'll volunteer their time to come out for nothing but a T-shirt and an occasional chicken nugget that might be left over someplace. But they work really hard. They work as hard as our kids do. But our kids they've kind of developed a little bit of a confidence on defense. And if you've noticed too, I'll kind of let them figure stuff out. Like I'm letting them talk on the floor and work through things. We had some blown assignments, but man, they got them fixed. And that's that's usually not something you do till late December. So I'm glad we're doing it here in November.
Back off that with the conditioning. I've noticed the conditioning is a lot different now at this point in the season than years past. Is it because of that men's men's practice team that they're going up against, or is it the late start to the off season?
I think it's a combination of the two things you mentioned. We started a little bit later. We do have some rep. We don't have to take as many reps in practice, but then the job that Tyler does in our strength and conditioning with our Connexon stuff, all of the stuff that we read, the daily monitoring, it's allowed us almost like an analytic, like a stats analytic, to judge how tired our kids should be and when we can pull back and when we can push a little bit through it. Though that tool that he's gone out and he's perfected it. He gives me a report. I don't know how to read it most days. I have to get some deciphering, but at the end, there's one number I can look at that tells me how hard the practice was and how each kid did in that practice. And it allows us to do the right drills on the right days so that we can play. I mean, we had pretty good distribution of minutes tonight. We had 8 kids with 18 plus minutes. We haven't had that. So I give our men's practice player our decision to start late, but most of it really goes to Tyler and Dave and what they do in our strength and conditioning and what Christina does in our nutrition. Our kids are eating and sleeping right. And then of course, Simone keeps them in athletic training. We've got a really cool process right now. It's neat to be around right now.
Coach, it was win number 100 for you at Arkansas. I know it happened with this bunch, but will you just touch on all the players it's taken to get you here and coaches?
Yeah, Phil mentioned it right up there in the deal. So, we like nice round numbers in sports. So that's a fun one to get to. But yeah, you go back to that first year when we walked in the locker room and there were 5 kids just like this, just like, what are we going to do? And I think back to that group of kids that stayed, and then the group that we were able to convince into coming early when we didn't have anything but vision of what it was going to look like. But it's starting to really take shape. And I think to get to 100 is a good indicator of what our kids have done. Our staff's worked hard because we don't schedule easy. There's a lot of teams out there that are playing teams that aren't as good as Kent and Tulsa and going to Pine Bluff and then turn around and go into Little Rock. This group's taking on the challenge. So that 100 means something. It's not an easy 100. You look at who that 100 is. There's a Baylor in there. There's a UConn in there. There's some games that were hard. We'll go back and reflect on that. I didn't even know it was coming. I didn't even know it was. Hopefully there's a cake waiting for me.
Shots not falling, but Saylor 3rd game in a row leading the team in plus minus. We just talk about her impact on the court.
I can't really explain it. I mean, this kid she was either first or second every shooting drill we did all summer. It's a matter of time. The shots are there. She's a great shooter, but she keeps finding ways to make a difference in her lineups. And that's why she's playing the minutes she is. She's such a deceptive defender. She makes people pass it a lot. She's there on the catch. She's blocking shots. When the shot starts falling, it's just going to be another whole dimension. But we got to remember she's a freshman. I know she seems mature. She talks mature. She hadn't played a lot since her junior year of high school. We've just got to continue to be really, really patient. I thought Chrissy busted out a little bit tonight. We started to see a little bit of what Chrissy's capable of doing. She took 7 really good shots. I thought every one of them were going in, and we'll get Saylor there too. And her teammates are giving her a lot of encouragement. I love Merriam and Jersey, coming in that spark they give us off the bench. And then, the Langerman doing Langerman things. She had 6, we call them Langermans now. They are just hustle plays that you can't coach. There's not a drill for it, but she's either tying a ball up to flip the arrow or tying it to get a possession or tipping it or deflecting, hockey's assist. The roles are really starting to be pretty cool right now. You got it. What'd they tell you? I tell you this, we did run for the first time in my career as a coach for missing a free throw. I used to hate that when I was a player, and I just never thought it was a tactic that was worth it. But the other day I said, all right, the definition of insanity, trying the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Einstein gets credited with that a lot, but it wasn't him. It was actually an actress back early in times. But we tried something different. I said, all right, today you missed 2, you got to run down and back. You miss 1, you run half. And there was like this groan that went out, and they were not happy when they missed. So I'm not taking any credit for it. They're good shooters. It's a focus thing. And they want to please so bad, Grant. They want to make every shot. They want to get every defensive assignment right. They have been way more frustrated than any coach on our staff has been all year long. And it's a good thing. I've got to get used to it. It's new for me. But they really hold themselves to a pretty high standard. And, when I start to try to cut them some slack, they're like, no, don't do that. Don't cut us some slack. We should have got that right. So that's refreshing. But no, there's no secret to it, but it was better. What was it? 11 of 16. Yeah. We're getting in this almost to the 70s. I think I told him if we get to the 70s, we can stop running. So it's close. I don't round up. I'm not one of those round up teachers. So.
Football is back, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player news, and game trends. And as your continued source for all sports wagering info, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events like MLB, MMA, tennis, boxing, and even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts.